You've probably quoted William Shakespeare today, and you might not even know it. Ever said, "break the ice"? That was him. What about a wild goose chase? Yep, him too. The scale of his influence is just massive. He isn't just some dusty historical figure, he's literally woven into the way we speak and the stories we tell. So, we all recognize this face, right? It's the most famous writer in the English language. But the real story isn't about the fancy collar or that iconic look. It's a story of incredible ambition, raw genius, and a complete revolution in how we understand ourselves. And that's really the big question, isn't it? This guy wasn't born into some literary dynasty. He was from a regular family in a small town. So how did he do it? Well, we're about to put the pieces together, from the man himself to the very words he gave us.
Okay, to really get a handle on the genius, you have to meet the actual man. And that means we need to cut through, 400 years of legends. You know, those fun stories about him poaching deer or holding horses outside of theaters in London. There's really no evidence for any of that. But the true story, the one we can piece together from actual records, is honestly just as amazing.
His life follows this incredible arc. He starts out middle class, marries an older woman, which was likely a bit of a scandal, and then he just disappears for a few years. Historians actually call them the lost years. It's a total blank space. We have no idea what he was doing. Was he a soldier? A secret law clerk? Who knows? But whatever happened, he shows up in London and builds a career that makes him so successful he retires back home as a wealthy gentleman. A total success story.
Now here's the thing about his genius. It wasn't just in one lane. Theatrically, he was a master of all trades. I mean, he didn't invent genres like comedy or tragedy, but his plays, they pretty much became the blueprint for what those genres could be.
His comedies, like A Midsummer Night's Dream, are just full of witty wordplay and delightful romantic chaos. He often sends his characters off to these enchanted forests or faraway islands where all the normal rules of society just fall apart. And it all leads to mix-ups, self-discovery, and of course, a big happy wedding at the end.
And then, on the complete flip side, you've got his tragedies. These are built around a hero who has what's called a fatal flaw. You know, think of Macbeth's ambition or Othello's jealousy. It's this one single weakness that gets twisted and exploited until it brings about their total and utter ruin. These plays are deep dives into human suffering, and yeah, they don't usually end well for anyone.
And finally, you have the histories. Shakespeare took the real lives of English kings and queens and turned them into these epic blockbuster dramas. But let's be clear, he was a playwright, not a historian. If he needed to bend the facts a little to make a more interesting villain, like he did with Richard III, he absolutely would. The story always came first.
But here's where things get really revolutionary. Shakespeare's true innovation wasn't just about the plots he wrote, it was about the people inside them. Before him, audiences mostly just saw what characters did. Shakespeare gave us a window into what they were thinking. He basically pioneered psychological realism on the stage.
He did this with a tool that he absolutely mastered, the soliloquy. So what is it? It's basically when a character is alone on stage and they speak their thoughts out loud. It's not just a speech. It's like we, the audience, have a direct hotline into their brain. We get to hear their deepest fears, their conflicts, their motivations, all in real time.
And I mean, come on, there is no better example than this one. In this moment, Hamlet isn't talking to anyone else. He's talking to himself, and through him, to us. He is wrestling with the biggest questions of life and death, right there in front of us. We are literally inside his mind.
You have to understand, this was a total game changer. It allowed his characters to be complicated, to be contradictory, to be human. They don't just act, they question themselves, they reason, they evolve. It's basically the granddaddy of all the modern storytelling techniques we see in movies and books today. It changed drama forever.
So his impact isn't just something you find in a dusty old library. Nope, it's in the way we talk, every single day. Shakespeare was a linguistic innovator on a scale that we have just never seen before, or since. Just take a second and think about that number. Over 1,700 words. When the English language didn't have a word for something he wanted to say, he just made one up. He'd borrow from other languages, he'd turn nouns into verbs, whatever it took.
I mean, look at some of these. Words like assassination, lonely, or generous. They feel like they've just always been part of our language, right? Wrong. They were first written down in his plays. He literally gave us new tools to describe our world and how we feel.
And it goes way beyond single words, too. All those phrases we use without even thinking, break the ice, being in a pickle. They all come from Shakespeare. They're so common now that we've totally forgotten that one writer invented them 400 years ago. It's wild.
So, this all leads to the biggest question of all. Why do we still care? How did his work even survive for over 400 years to connect with us today? Well, the survival part, that was a very close call. Get this, 7 years after Shakespeare died, two of his friends and fellow actors, John Hemingene and Henry Condell, gathered up all of his plays. They published them in one huge book that we now call the First Folio. And without this one book, his legacy would be a tiny fraction of what it is today.
And thank goodness they did it. Just look at this list of plays that would have been lost forever. 18 of his plays had never been published before. That means no Macbeth, no Twelfth Night, no The Tempest. Can you even imagine a world without those stories? It's one of the most important books ever printed, simply because of everything it saved.
And the reason these plays still hit so hard is because they're about us. They speak to these universal truths about being human. This quote just captures it perfectly. He wrote about love and jealousy, ambition and loss and power in a way that just goes beyond any one time or culture. He saw the patterns in our lives.
In the end, Shakespeare endures because he holds a mirror up to all of us. His characters are wrestling with the exact same big questions we are. Their struggles are our struggles. And the fact that we can still see ourselves so clearly in his work 400 years later, well, that tells us just as much about ourselves as it does about him.